Hey there, goblins. Welcome to Goblin Salvage Rights. My name is Robert.
And I'm Erik.
And today we are covering a brand new book, Rage of Elements.
Oh.
So I think today's topic is probably going to take up so much time that we're going to kind of breeze right over our game we played most recently because we
usually skip past those anyways, right? Be honest.
We got a lot to cover today.
So today we're going to be talking about our initial thoughts about Rage of Elements and elementary observations. This is not a deep dive into this book.
No.
We haven't had it long enough to read it page to page.
We literally got the book yesterday. I think you've had it since Saturday.
Yeah. And by had it, I went to wine country as well. So
yeah, exactly.
I didn't bring it with me. I wasn't allowed.
Exactly. That would have been rough. Oh, man. Sarah would have killed you.
Yeah.
Before we get started, I'd like to thank one of our patrons.
Yes. Patrons are everything to us. Thank you for growing when we throw water at you. Who is it today? Oh, wait. I've got the name, don't I?
You wrote it down.
I know I'm going to butcher this, but Simeon, if I said that wrong, please correct me in the comments below and I'll get it right going forward. Thank you. Your contributions mean everything. And we're still here after 2-3 dozens of episodes.
Yeah.
Largely in part to you and people like you. So
Warms
you're an
our
excellent
heart.
goblin.
Warms our elemental heart.
Yeah. I see what you did there.
So
this entire thing's going to be puns, isn't it?
Pun City, baby. Pun City. All right. So what did this book do? Well, this book came out right at the heels of a pretty big change in Pathfinder, right?
Yeah. And it's coming ahead of even more changes. So the whole remastered project that they've been doing behind the scenes for a while now. This is supposed to be, I believe, the first set of rules that are remastered rules.
They're
before the remastered books even come out.
Yeah, they're compatible with the remastered rules. If you're watching this in like 4 or 5 months or whatever, you're going to have those rules in your hands, and we're probably going to be making episodes about them. There is a great little section in the very beginning of the book.
A sidebar on page 3.
Yeah, right next to the table of contents that kind of goes over a lot of the basics that are going to be covered in that. That's a nice little glimpse.
Mainly name changes. So if we're used to things like attacks of opportunity, we're not calling them that anymore. They're now called something else.
They're called reactive strikes.
Reactive strikes. So there's some nomenclature changes that are going to be going on. I don't care too much about that for this video today.
Yeah.
Again, this is just our initial impulses and observations.
Oh God. All right. So let's.
Sorry, not sorry.
Okay. So we're going to jump right into it. I'm going to breeze over the table of contents and just give you an idea of what we're working with. Links as always are in the doobly-doo for all the little things you can find. If you want to jump around, feel free.
Bookmarks and whatnot.
We're going to start off with elemental character options right at the front. We're talking kineticist, elemental companion, stuff like that. And then the book is broken up into air, earth, fire, metal, water, wood, churn of elements. So basically each element got its own entry. That each entry comes with great lore, items,
like a toolbox section for monsters, items, spells,
everything you could want. Yeah, everything you could want. I really like the layout of this book, and I think books to come, because they blend GM and player options together in each chapter.
They do, and they make it easy. I don't know if you noticed or not, but like they actually color coded the borders of these pages so that you're looking at the fire section when you just have it closed in front of you.
Yeah,
like
it's
this.
red. Yeah, exactly.
And if you're looking at blue, you're either in water or air.
Yeah.
So you don't even need these really nifty little sidebars to tell you where you are in the book, although they certainly help.
Absolutely.
So kudos for that. Well done, layout person.
Absolutely. All right. So let's get started with the very top of the character options, and we're going to be talking Kineticist.
Kineticist, because that's what people have been screaming about for 2, 3, 4 years since this game came out.
We definitely know you want to hear it, and here are our Kineticist thoughts. Erik literally just read the chapter 10 minutes ago.
I deliberately did not read the Kineticist section because the designers have said and the developers have said this is kind of like the not the hardest but the most difficult character class they've designed so far. Absolutely. And it takes up 16 to 24 pages of this book.
Yeah, 24.
And again, that's you don't use all the options when you're a kineticist. You just decide which direction you want to go. So of the 20-something pages of Kineticist, maybe like, I don't know, 5 or 6 might be relevant to you. I'm guessing here.
Like as a player? Yeah.
As a player, right.
Yeah.
If I want to be like a water bender, I don't need all 24 of those pages to build myself a kineticist.
Absolutely.
So that means I can take a deep breath and not get overburdened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's probably the most intimidating class they've ever come out with as far as options goes.
And that's saying something because I played a thaumaturge and that broke my brain.
Yeah. So when compared to the thaumaturge, it has more options. However, I want to say that the thaumaturge does something very similar. If you think of each thaumaturge's implement, I think they're called. If you think of them as the elements, basically the elements.
That's not a bad way of looking at it.
Yeah, because the elements are directions you build your character
Sure.
in, and so are implements. Implements define what a
it's creativity by restraints.
Exactly. So I read through this 2 or 3 times now. I got it. I got my hands on it.
Kineticist part?
The kineticist part, yeah.
Then this part of the show is all you.
Yeah. I've focused really heavily on understanding how the kineticist worked because let's lay out the fundamental issue, the fundamental challenge with the kineticist.
Okay.
If you're trying to capture the flavor of a kineticist as someone who can harness the elements and manipulate them, from level 1, you're going to have to be able to manipulate those elements pretty significantly.
Immediately right out the gate. Yep,
yeah,
100%.
To capture that flavor. And that can be game breaking. I mean, like move earth and stone, may not be called that anymore. I'm showing my age. Is like a 4th level spell.
Okay.
And an earth kineticist can begin to do something that is approaching that at level 1.
I'm guessing to a lesser degree.
Yeah.
Than what we're used to.
They had a hard challenge of deciding of using precise language that allows the player to have the feeling without being able to break the game.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Like, where's that line for the power of your class versus the power that you can use to break the game?
Exactly. And a class like earth or a metal is a lot more kind of, I want to say a lot more game breaky than an element like fire or air or even water to some extent, because there are more things in your regular view that are built with these elements or have those elements as a major constraint, right? You know, it's very rare that a player fords a river and that's a major constraint to them, or fords some sort of water body and it's a huge constraint to them. Very often the ground or a hill or a mountain or some kind of earth or stone is a pretty big constraint, especially to lower level players. And they had to design the exploration mode abilities around that idea, around the flavor, but also not giving the players too much power to kind of just like circumvent a lot of tropes that you find in most adventure paths.
Sure, because all these elements you just rattled off, they're typically hazards, whether it's like an avalanche on a mountain or splashing magma as you're climbing a volcano.
Yeah. It's funny, actually. Like literally surfing magma is an ability that the kineticists can do.
You knew it had to be.
Absolutely.
100%.
So
I love the art. I want to take a second to show that our iconic for the kineticist, she's aged. They. I have no idea what their pronouns are. I'm going to go with they because that's safer. They have aged and they look angry and adult and fearsome
and fiery
compared to first edition artwork.
Absolutely.
So well done, Mr. Reynolds.
I really love the direction that we took the iconic character. Yeah. Of course, Reynolds has knocked out of the park yet again.
Yeah, it's just like 10, 15 years later, like June, is that her name?
I have no idea.
Weren't they like, I don't know, like
they were
12 or something, 10 or something?
They were a kid.
And now they're full on adult.
If you think about it, they've aged just as long as the game has.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's weird. I've been listening to a lot of Taylor Swift lately, and I promise this is relevant.
Okay.
But she has done this amazing thing where she's getting control of her masters.
Yeah.
And it's a big conversation going on right now.
Right.
And she's trying to circumvent the billionaires. Yay, even though she's basically one. So but she's recording all of her tracks. And so like 15-year-old T Swift is singing, you know, old Fearless and Red tracks now with her aged and evolved and well-crafted adult voice.
Right.
They just sound so different. And I feel that way when I look at the artwork and cause like all the iconics have aged as well. It's not just June.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So you can see not Caden Kalian, who's the fighter? Valeros. I think art of him has gray streaks in his temples now. So it's like the game is not stagnant. It doesn't stay still for decades. The game ages with us.
Absolutely.
And I don't know. To me, that's pleasing.
It's pretty cool. It's definitely pretty cool. Yeah. So getting back to the kineticist, there's one golden cow here that they didn't kill. And that is the kineticist's key attribute being Constitution.
Constitution. Finally, we get one.
I'm a little disappointed by this. I think that wisdom wisdom needs a lot of help, in my opinion. Wisdom needs more classes that are based on it to really kind of balance out the game in the mental stat arena.
Okay.
But mainly because first edition Kineticist played with its HP. And that was a main driver balance wise as to why you would run Constitution with it. But now, in my opinion, it has a lot less of a connection with your hardiness, which is what Constitution generally is. And they've made this entire Rage of Elements book mainly focused on the different planes. It's very druid focused. It's very
primal,
yeah, very wisdom focused. And
Okay.
I'm a little disappointed that they didn't shift this into wisdom.
There would have been a lot of people complaining that they took it away from Constitution.
Well, there's a lot of people complaining that they changed all of the nomenclature.
Oh yeah,
You know what I mean? Like players are going to complain no matter what you do.
yeah.
You know, you
yeah.
can make a game too easy. They complain about it being too easy. They make a game too hard. They complain about it being too hard.
That's true, but there's really no other Constitution key attribute classes out there. This was sort of like their first stab at that, which makes me wonder if there's going to be more coming down the pike.
That's a good point. We'll see how it shakes out. Obviously, we haven't played any characters with it. So, Kineticist D8, they've got 8+ con as their HP. They're basically trained in light armor and simple weapons. So that's about it. It's expert in fortitude and reflex, trained in will. So you can see right out of the gate that we are a martial class for the most part. We have a very big martial feel to us.
Sure.
Except they're actually casters.
They are blaster casters.
What's weird about this is they get expert proficiency at 7th level instead of 5th level. If we look at marshals and casters across the board, marshals get expert in attacks at 5th level, and casters get expert in their casting stat, which is almost always their to hit modifier when casting spells at people at 7th level. So those dwell times, and then, again, at, 5 or 6 later after, so on and so forth. So there's a little bit of weakness dwell time between levels 5 and 7, or rather 5 and 6. It's not a huge gap, but for those 2 levels and for the game generally, this is a pretty well-established balance in the game. The reason for that difference is mainly because casters get access to AoE effects and things that can affect opponents even on a failure, or sometimes even a critical failure, or a success if they make a save, so on and so forth. So I think the reason the designers went this direction is because the Kineticist has a lot of really cool abilities that allow them to affect big AoEs, that allow them to interact with the world in really spell-like ways. Some might say that they're spell-like abilities. So that makes a really difficult balancing opportunity here. And again, getting back to balancing for in and out of combat, a lot of players are going to complain about what they did to balance the in-game versus out-of-game, the exploration mode versus encounter mode abilities. But I think they probably went in the wisest direction. The trade-offs are big for the most part. So the class is largely built up into cut down two major ways, if you will. You've got impulses. Impulses are the abilities that let you do stuff in combat modes for the most part. And then you have kineses, and kineses allow you to do things out of combat in exploration mode. That is, 10,000 foot level, but you have in combat abilities, which are feats. They act like feats, but only this class gets access to them. And then kineses are an inbuilt part of the actual class itself. And then you can get 1 or 2 feats later, actual class feats that allow you to grow those abilities and affect more bulk or affect things in different ways.
Okay.
So fundamentally, the way the class works, if you want to be Aang, the avatar, you'll be Aang at like 20th level. So
I have no idea who this person is. I'm guessing it's the Last Airbender.
Avatar, the Last Airbender. Yeah.
Is he the air guy?
Yes, he's the air guy.
Okay. Just checking.
Yeah, so
I presume nothing.
So I mean, like, this is the class for any nerd who loves Avatar: The Last Airbender.
100%. Yeah.
Our fellow player at the table, Gabby, is gonna fall in love with this class.
Oh, 100%.
Because it absolutely allows you to be that.
It's the most anime thing I've seen yet in this entire game.
Yeah. So you basically pick 1 or 2 elements at first level. You can focus on one element and get really, really good at that one element, or you can add more and more elements along the way, or you can do something in between.
Yeah.
You can pick 1 or 2 elements You get to play the game with them. And at 5th level, I believe, you get to pick another element. From there, you basically do cool manipulation element abilities as you level up.
Yeah, way cooler than it used to be in 2nd edition when I made my monk, who was actually genie-blooded and had access to 4 of the primal elements, and they would channel in different ways through different attacks. But there weren't enough feats, there weren't enough special abilities, there weren't enough attacks to really make that pop. So I've got to redo that entire, I don't even remember what he was. He was a 9th level Azer Katai elemental monk with stances like wolf and gorilla, and I'm like, no, I want like fire magma stance,
lightning
stuff
stance.
like that. You know, give me the elements.
Exactly.
So I get to redo an entire character out of the monk and into this. So I'm very excited about that.
Overall, I'd say that the Kineticist is not needlessly complicated. I would say it's
Needfully complicated.
Needfully complicated.
Complicated by design.
Complicated by design. There are a couple things that
complex. How about complex?
Yeah. There are a couple things that I think they may have done without. But again, I haven't play tested this at all, so I really don't know how complicated it is.
Are we gonna do like a deep dive video on the Kineticist and just the Kineticist and nothing but the Kineticist?
So the next thing we're gonna do after this podcast drops is we're gonna do a short, straight to the point episode where we detail our first class ever, and it's gonna be the Kineticist,
right? Because we're gonna start easy.
Well, we're gonna bottle the lightning is really what we're gonna do. Everyone's hype around this book and the Kineticist. So
it is what it is.
Each of these impulse sheets that allow you to interact with your element on a combat level, they're all really cool abilities. They're all very flavorful to the Kineticist. If you want to play a firebender from Avatar, you absolutely can. All of those classic abilities, like shooting fire out of your feet or whatever, and running with like fucking shooting fireballs out of your hands or whatever, it's all there. It's all there.
When you say impulse sheets, impulse might be a new term for some people.
Yeah.
Can you define that just really briefly?
Absolutely. Impulses are basically are actions you can take that use your element, basically. And you get access to them by using a class feat. So you can burn a class feat, and instead of picking up a class feat, you can pick up an impulse feat, which allows you to do something like
aerial boomerang for an
storm spiral, or ghosts in the storm, which is like you summon a bunch of clouds around you that deal like electricity damage. They block.
Some of these are reactions. Some of these are 1, 2, and 3 actions.
Yeah, so
cool.
The class is a combination of sustained spells where you basically summon a construct and you can sustain it over time, and it does cool stuff, and that burns one of your actions each turn. You can enter a stance that has a cool AoE ability around you, or you can fling fireballs or earth balls or lightning storms.
Why do impulses feel like focus spells to me, minus the focus pool? Okay. Is it the same design philosophy, just slant?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not making that up.
No, that's absolutely true. So I'm sure this class started on the cutting room floor as focus points the class.
Yeah.
But then they realized, I'm sure, that if you do that, you're going to have to either give them way too many focus points or abilities to get it back, or it just isn't going to be fun, because every fight you're only going to be able to do 3 things with your cool ability. You're going to want to be able to do a myriad of different things with different actions.
Right.
So instead, they just had to bite the bullet, I think, and divorce focus spells from the class.
I don't hate it, and I never did like focus spells when I was playing them. I know they're doing new rules for focus spells coming up with Remastered in November.
Hear that. That's cool.
But it's going to be a lot easier to get all your focus points back. So it's not going to be so record keeping as it used to be.
Gotcha.
But still, I'm glad they didn't go that route with these impulses.
Yeah, there's like no record keeping at all with this class. You're basically going to have like a list.
That's strange to me, considering this is like 16 to 24 pages worth of stuff for one class.
The way this is going to work is you're going to make your class, you're going to have a list of all the actions you can do in front of you. And that's it.
That's it.
Pretty much. I mean,
so know your actions, people.
Yeah, there's a couple static abilities you get at like the junctions, which you get at 5th level. And if you go mono element, you get they call it a single gate. You get a special bonus if you spend 2 actions. That's about it. Like if you spend 2 actions to cast a spell, or sorry, not cast a spell, use an impulse, you get these little buffs. But besides that, it's pretty much like,
it's pretty straightforward once you get past the jargon.
Once you get past the,
because there's a bunch of stuff like gates, thresholds, kineses, impulses. There's a lot of nomenclature that's specific to this class and only this class.
Well, every class is like that. That's one of the frustrating things about Pathfinder generally.
It seems like there's an excessive amount because like an attack of opportunity, that's something you can spread across multiple classes.
Yeah.
And right, we don't call it that anymore.
But still, like each class has its own reaction, and those reactions have their own name, and they have their own special spin on the attack of opportunity.
Yeah.
And this is no exception. It's just that every element had to kind of be its own class.
Gates, legends, reflows. There's new nomenclature here.
There's literally a sidebar of nomenclature on page 15.
That's
composite, impulse, infusion, overflow, and stance.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm looking forward to this because again, I got to remake that character because I love that character and I hate the way it played at the table. So this is my homework between here and the end of the year.
I've read this class 3 times from start to finish. And
did it read the same way each time?
Each time I realized, oh, this is how it's supposed to be played. And then I read it again and I'm like, oh, this is the balance for this. So the designers obviously spent a bunch of time on this and probably playtested
the shit out of this
way more than any normal class because there's just so many different pieces that kind of fit together. What I really like, and we can jump off of this topic and jump into something new, is at the end and at the end of the book, they have composite elements. So they have a whole list of impulses that are composite impulses, where it's an impulse that you can do. Again, remember, impulses are actions you get to do generally in combat. With your element. This requires you to have 2 of a specific element, and you can then take this impulse and do them in conjunction. This is on page 36. A really cool one is like molten wire, where it's metal and fire, desert wind, air and earth, whirling grindstone. Okay, whirling grindstone is probably my favorite.
We're combining elements.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
gives us composite impulses.
Exactly. Whirling grindstone literally makes a whirling grindstone, a big rock with metal in it that spins and rips the flesh off of people. That's literally a line from the paragraph. And also, marshals can put their sword up to it and sharpen the sword and then get an extra bonus to damage. It's like,
that is hilarious.
Whoever thought of this, you get gold star, because like this is just some of the wackiest stuff you could ever come up with, and I love it.
So
lava leap is exactly what you want it to be. It's literally lava rocks.
It feels bonkers, much in the same way that every single page out of Guns and Gears was bonkers, which leads me to this next question. Did we decide that the Kineticist is a common class now, along with fighter, cleric, druid, and all of them?
Yeah, they're common.
It's not. I might have a little asterisk next to it in any game I run in the future, because that's a little.
Why is that? I'm curious.
Because it's hard to run a serious detective noir story when you've got The Last Airbender haunting every scene. It's goofy and comic and over the top and gonzo. In a way that kind of like, it doesn't matter what everybody on the other side of the table is doing. Your gonzo thing is going to be center stage just because it's so larger than life.
Is it more larger than life than playing a fire elemental sorcerer?
No, but I'm glad you went that way. Maybe yes. I don't know. Just all the stuff that I've heard you say so far about this, it feels like comic book epic kind of stuff, surfing the magma and just like goofy, fun Saturday morning cartoon kind of activities, as opposed to like, I don't know, in the Book of the Dead, there was that one thing where you could rip out your own entrails and read the future. It just
that was pretty metal.
It's super metal, right?
Yeah.
And maybe that's gonzo too. Maybe I'm just showing my bias here, but there's definitely a Saturday morning cartoon element to this entire book that
like there was to Guns and Gears,
just like Guns and Gears. You're right, and these are not common classes. That's why I was asking.
Gotcha.
So like this is going to reflavor your game. There's nothing you can do about it. Whatever character you're playing, Secrets of Magic is going to reflavor your game no matter what you're doing, because it defines the look and feel and texture of Magic in your system.
Generally
this is the same thing.
Generally speaking, I think they reserve the uncommon tag to things that are regionally bound within the setting of Golarion. So the reason why both the classes in Guns and Gears are uncommon is not because they're complicated. I mean, the gunslinger is not complicated in the slightest.
Right.
It's just that the ability to literally do the class is constrained to like
by the lore,
5 places in the lore.
One of them's an entire continent.
Exactly. So it's like you can be a kineticist from anywhere, just like you can be a sorcerer
I have
from
a hard
anywhere.
time thinking that lore reasons are the reason why some things are common versus uncommon versus rare in terms of classes. Yeah, just, I don't know, that feels arbitrary and weird to me. If that's the case, then that's the case, and I'm just not aware of it. But
And then
I get Gunslinger being uncommon because that's going to change the look and feel of every fantasy game out there. You know, people want swords and sorcery and shields and, you know, leather armor and stuff. And all of a sudden, Wyatt Earp comes out of left field, you know, with his, you know, runic flamethrower. It changes your game.
Same
right?
thing with
It's
Inventor, right?
Yeah. With Inventor, with you know, the what do you call it? The Final Fantasy Summoner, the Summoner.
Okay.
It's just it certain stories feel like Saturday morning cartoons when you put certain classes in them.
Do you think maybe your perception of what the class represents might be getting in the way of what like I think we could make any one of these classes noir if we wanted.
I think so too. Yeah.
Right?
So like a blaster caster.
Yeah.
You brought up the this fire sorcerer. I think you said
Sure,
as an example. I've never been satisfied with the blaster caster as a wizard. Never really tried it as a sorcerer. But I've always had like this this wizard gaming fantasy of playing a blaster caster tied to the elements and evocation magics and that sort of thing. And it never felt right with the wizard. And I was hoping to use this to kind of do that for me.
Absolutely.
And how does that change the look and feel of a game? Whether you're playing a horror noir versus whatever you're doing, you know, Stone Age woolly mammoths and shit like that.
Yeah.
Sure, you can do it. I can't get the Last Airbender out of my brain. I just
Well, I don't know, Eric. Maybe that's a you problem.
Maybe there's certain popular cultural references that are so foreground that nothing else is coming to mind.
Yeah.
And sure, I've got work to do on that end.
No, I mean, that may be it. And the inspiration, you know, it goes both ways. The inspiration for these classes is probably pulling from those pop cultural moments.
Yeah.
Making it harder for players and GMs to get into that flavor to begin with.
Yeah. I mean,
cart before the horse kind of problem.
Yeah. Every kineticist in my brain is going to be doing something like this and then running off screen. I've got to get that out of my head in order for me to really make this sing.
When Dregrid dies,
we'll have a long talk.
His older brother will walk on stage from Oprok, and he's going to be a fire metal kineticist who's trained. No, he's got to be Earth because they're connected to the Earth elemental.
We just need
plane.
to start over and play a whole different campaign. Sorry, guys.
Absolutely.
Whatever I play has to be wrapped around your character specifically.
Oh, stop. I'm not that much of a special snowflake. All right. So let's move forward to the other class options. There's a bunch of other stuff that's available besides the kineticist.
Absolutely. So we will do the deep dive on the kineticist and moving on.
That's got its own.
There's like 16 different artists that put artwork inside this book, and you can tell because they're drastically different. And one of the things that immediately jumped out to me was the what do you call this? The interior art for the inside of the cover. This sort of like pencil artwork reminded me a lot of the old what the hell was that guy's name? Tony Diodolisi for Planescape. He did all the really cool Planescape art, of which this is one of them. So it looks like a lot of second edition kind of pencil art. Maybe that's watercolor. Maybe I'm just not learned or wise. But there's a lot of sort of just like pencil art quality here that made its way into Rage of Elements in a way I haven't seen in other books.
Yeah.
And it's got a real muted quality. It doesn't sizzle and pop like the electric artwork that you see in most other Pathfinder products.
Yeah, it's not as
saturated. And that you also see in other areas by other artists in here. So it seems like this is a planar book. There's no two ways about it. You know, Planar Adventures at the end of the Pathfinder first edition life cycle was sort of them saying, okay, we're ready to go out and explore everything. Oh shit, the game is over. Now we need a second edition.
Gotcha.
But this right here feels like it's in the 30 to 40% marker of the life cycle of Pathfinder second edition. And I'm totally making that number up. There's nothing official about it. But it feels like we have so much more road to go down for 2E, and we got a planar book.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how first edition worked.
No, not at all.
So that plus the art style feeling like a throwback to old D20 systems.
It's absolutely an homage.
I can't get Planescape out of my brain when I look at this Rage of Elements, and that has to be a conscious decision they made over there.
Yeah,
because there are too many examples of it in here.
It's
so that was
homage,
the thing I noticed.
I loved, so in between the first 2 pages of every element section, I know we're skipping ahead at this point, but bear with me.
Sure, yeah.
Has an incredible
that was one of them.
Line drawing of these elemental planes of existence and kind of like where you would live there. And oh god, I really love the art so much. It reminds me of like early Final Fantasy art in a lot of ways.
Sure.
Especially in the guidebooks that they would write.
It pulls back from the hyper-realism.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's, like you said, it's very desaturated. A lot of those colors are desaturated. And then we jump to like some of the beautiful pieces of monster art that are just so electric and vibrant.
Love me some monsters. Okay. Since we're on monsters, I'm going to have my one massive complaint about this book.
Okay.
I got to get it out because it hurts.
Do it.
All right. What monster does that look like?
A gem-based Tyrannosaurus Rex.
A Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Yeah.
What monster does this look like?
No.
It's the same fucking guy. It's the god.
No
They made him a T-Rex in one, and they made him a Draco-Lich looking sort of thing in the other. And it happens repeatedly in the art. He's described as being a dragon shape with jewels and gems and all that. But on the cover, this is Jim Jacobs, the T-Rex, in my brain.
Oh no! Yeah, it is totally the Jim Jacobs T-Rex.
Yeah. That's a really dumb complaint, but it bothered me because it's right here on the cover of my $55 book.
Does it also have little T-Rex arms? I think it might also have little T-Rex arms.
I'm seeing him right there. Yeah, he can't make his bed. His elemental bed is forever messy.
Or maybe those little things are part of his body too.
But it's a dumb throwaway line. But I did notice it. It bothered me because the deities for the elemental planes are a big deal now because so many of them came back after being jailed in the cosmos for millennia. And now we have these good elemental deities that are returning going, wow, it's been a hot minute since I've been here. All of my power's been depleted. I got to go about making alliances again and interacting with the other deities of the different planes to get myself, back into fighting shape.
Reestablished.
And all of that lore is in here along with some stupendous artwork for each of them. So is the evil elemental god of fire? No, Earth. Sorry, Earth.
Yeah.
This toxic Chernobyl dinosaur. Is it a dinosaur or a dragon?
Toxic
I'm gonna let you guys
Chernobyl dinosaur. I love that description so much. All right, so getting back to the elemental allies.
Elemental allies. Are we bouncing back to that?
Yeah, let's get back in order here.
So this is part of the toolbox, right? Stuff that characters can use when they're playing Kineticist.
Character options. They introduced elemental eidolons very significantly. Some really, really cool abilities like elemental burst. Literally lets you take a piece of the eidolon, chuck it like a bomb at your opponent, and you actually take damage. You lose an amount of HP equal to your level. So
what I just heard you say, and again, for people who might not have all this stuff memorized, you said eidolon, right? That's a summoner creature.
Yeah.
So these things that you can pick and choose and use for your character, they're not absolutely about the kineticists.
No, not at all.
You can be other classes and still use this book.
Yeah, the first section was just introducing the kineticist, which is kind of like the star representative of the elements.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of other classes that have access to the elements.
And that's important when you're throwing down $50 on a new hardcover book.
Absolutely. So this has got options for pretty much, I want to say like half of the classes in the game easily.
Yeah, certainly casters.
We got eidolons, but also marshals too. So you can make an elemental companion now. So they have a template for getting access to and using elemental companions, including metal elemental companions.
That is so cool.
And wood elemental
metal
companions,
and wood.
of course.
New elemental planes, for those of you playing at home who are not aware.
Of wood and metal.
Wood and metal. So air, earth, fire, water, that's kind of been our, what do they call them? The Greek elements, that structure.
Okay.
And
now we're Chinese elements.
And I might be butchering this or, reading more into it than there is, but I always understood this sort of like this Eastern philosophical take on it to include metal and wood as an element. So it just feels like they're just getting holistic.
Well, they're moving
with the elements.
Yeah, they're definitely moving in a new direction. And I think that structure allows them to play with new ideas and brand things in a way that you weren't expecting.
Yeah.
They branded metal elemental as sad and melancholic is the word it uses a lot.
Mhm.
Rust and steadfastness and decay.
Yeah.
And it's
like
kind of,
civilizations long crumbled to the eons.
it's kind of weird because, you know, it's hard for my brain, at least, to distinguish the difference between earth and metal because they kind of are the same thing in a lot of ways. Especially after, you know, being inundated with Avatar: The Last Airbender, where like really strong earthbenders could bend metal.
Mhm.
To me, they're kind of one and the same, or like one is an extraction of the other. Whereas in this, yeah, whereas in this, you can have like freaking a metal creature following you around that's made of not mechanized pieces, but literally like molten metal, like transmutable abilities incarnate. And that's kind of one of the big angles they went on is the ability of transmutation, of creating,
Yeah.
having like a liquid turn into a solid immediately,
Sure.
which I think is really cool.
I think of Eeyore when I think of metal.
What?
Yeah, the like as a elemental plane of existence, the decay, the entropy,
Oh,
all of that.
I was like,
I think of like Eeyore from Winnie the
where
Pooh.
is this connection coming
Well,
from?
you were talking about like in your brain, there's this weird bit you stumble over. Like, is it earth or is it metal? And they're kind of like, when is it one? When is it the other?
Yeah, exactly.
When I think of a personality type for the elemental plane of metal, I'm thinking Eeyore. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, that's a really good descriptor too, I think.
Tigger would be fire. Owl would be air.
I don't.
This is going to be a thing. I'm going to make it a thing later.
All right. I never really watched that show as a kid, so I don't really know the references.
Winnie the
too
Pooh?
well. Yeah.
Oh man, that is like formative shit for some of us.
Yeah, I know Winnie the Pooh exists, and I know the main characters.
Each character represents a different kind of drug addiction.
Oh.
And if you're not aware of that, I'm totally making this up.
Okay.
But it totally works too.
It does, yeah.
There's memes out there, and memes are truth.
All right.
Oh.
So anyway, getting back to the character options, you can have elemental familiars now. Yay. They replaced mephits with scamps, elemental scamps as a part of, as a part of the orc changeover. Frankly, I was never a fan of mephits. They have a special place in my heart as being like the thing that young Robert wanted to have a familiar of, and then realizing that they're actually kind of dumb. They're just literally elemental versions of imps, right? There's nothing creative there.
Yeah, no.
So you can have an elemental scamp now as a familiar. You can also have an elemental.
I just like reinserting the word scamp into our lexicon. We can use it every day now.
It's rad. It's rad.
Elemental scamp.
Elemental wisp, which is kind of something similar, but imagine literally just a little piece of that element following you around. This means we can play Howl from Howl's Moving Castle now. Canonically, you just literally grab a wizard and give it a fire elemental wisp familiar, and done. You have
Is that another anime?
Heartthrob. God, Erik. Howl's Moving Castle, Studio Ghibli's Howl's Moving Castle.
I know Studio Ghibli.
Okay.
Yep.
So the same people who made Spirited Away made another.
Is that another anime?
Oh God. I feel like I'm talking to my dad.
He's going to explode.
Yes. It's an incredible movie. It's a cult classic up there with, it's a cult classic up there with.
Yeah. I've heard it a million times.
Yeah.
Have yet to see it.
Okay, then.
Someday I'll get educated.
One of the things that I thought was really interesting is they introduced a new creature called a Chrismal. That's probably how you say it.
Like
CRY.
crystal, only Chrismal.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's a scorpion made out of jewels.
Of course it is.
But it's sentient, and they literally
Pixar, it didn't happen.
As the book is describing it, it says page 103. Page 103.
Page 103.
It's a crystal scorpion. It's a crystal scorpion that has a hunger for gems in the same way we have a reproductive need.
Okay.
And I'm not making that up. Those are words in the book. The Chrismal looks pretty badass. You can have a baby version of the scorpion as you're familiar. Okay. I think that's fucking awesome. I love scorpions. I know, weird. I'm weird. I love scorpions. I think they're rad as hell, metal as fuck. And the fact that you can have a crystal scorpion familiar is definitely going to find its way into one of my games in the future.
Sure.
So you can have familiars. There's options for everyone. And at that point, we hit the backgrounds. Ta-da, you get elemental backgrounds.
Elemental focus backgrounds for other classes to choose from.
Just anyone's background can be elemental focus now. They have 2 rares. And again, getting back to our talk about common, uncommon, and rare. Rare is set aside, not for things that are uncommon in the lore. It's set aside for things that have extra power.
Mhm.
So rare things are always more powerful than what a common or uncommon feat or ability would give you. Just
They will
across the board.
also have massive impact from a narrative standpoint.
Mhm.
So like if you are the son of a king, that matters in game. You know, if you have some
Instead of the son of a baker.
Right.
It's like, okay.
there's a rare Book of the Dead background, something along the lines of somebody super powerful and necromantic is
Mhm.
actively trying to chase you down. That matters. So
Yeah.
you get mechanical boosts, but there's also that narrative.
And the mechanical
impetus.
boosts are always strong. So it's a strong background thematically paired with a strong ability.
Iso's so good at that.
Yeah, they really are. So after that, we have 2 new ancestries, which is pretty big. They're both.
How did I miss that? Where are the ancestries?
What? They're
Oh, the Geniekin? Is that what you're referring to?
yeah.
Got it. Okay.
So
cool.
there's a Geniekin for the
Yep,
wood
there sure
elemental
is.
plane.
Yep.
And there's a Geniekin for the metal, elemental plane.
Yep, that is
super
correct.
cool. Some of these options are really rad. Like, I know we don't want to get too deep, and I already burned way too much time talking about the Kineticist, but like precious alloys and conductive redirection, conductors redirection in the metal one are really cool. They have like different versions of the same element. So a quick soul, a gilded soul. I really love what they did with the elemental people in the world. You know, you just basically take your whatever ancestry you want to be, slap an element on there, and you get to be an elemental version of that thing. And I think it's pretty
Sure. I'm seeing a tag I've never seen before. Lineage. Is Lineage a new tag?
I don't know. No idea.
I'm gonna keep an eye out for that because
it might just be
they're renaming and doing new tags all over the place coming up with this remaster, and I wanna not lose track of that.
Yeah, I have my guess would be that it's replacing you know how you have like heritage?
Right.
So you have like ancestry and heritage. And you know how you can have like you can be an Azamar tiefling. Not an you can't be an Azamar tiefling. You can be an Azamar elf.
Mhm.
I think it's probably maybe replacing that. Okay. Maybe. I don't know. That's just my guess.
Yeah, I want to look into that.
So next thing we have access to is a new kind of barbarian instinct. I was not expecting this, but it's pretty rad. It's literally just pick an element. You're a barbarian that has superpowers of that element now.
Right.
Flaming barbarian. They
have a metal rager. I mean, come on, you guys. This bard is going to write itself. Bard barbarian.
They have on the cover art for it. They have the iconic barbarian, just like on fire.
That's a Mary, isn't it?
Yeah, Mary with cool fire powers. So that's sick as fuck. I didn't really dig too deep into comparing its power level with the other ones, but if I remember correctly, the dragon one gives you elemental bonuses or elemental attacks. This one gives you elemental attacks. So I can't imagine it's, oh yeah, you better. So I can't imagine it's not too much different than the dragon instinct.
Deep dive.
Elemental spell lists. So
yeah, this is the part I was most excited about besides the lore.
Basically, they have in one page kind of reorganized the way elemental spells work in combination with Secrets of Magic, because we've now added we added 2 new elemental planes that you can cast from, which is pretty cool. So they basically eroded all of that stuff in and consolidated all of the spells into a tag. And to codify this even further, we're going to skip past the Kineticist archetype because it's literally just shitty Kineticist. And we're going to jump right into the Elementalist class archetype. So basically, this is one of those archetypes that significantly change your player at first level. So if you're the
rare archetype. Yep.
So they're changing the way that, wizards, sorcerers, druids, and every other caster works on a significant level because you're literally replacing their spell list.
Yep.
I think it's pretty cool. And then it comes with its own line of feats that are all like ways you can elementalify your spells.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty rad.
I think the Bullet Mage did that and the Rune Lord archetype did that.
Yep.
So there's other examples and other products that have done this before.
Yeah, it's got 2 pages to it. I wasn't able to spend enough time to really dig deep into it. But just based off of the titles, I think it looks like they've done pretty cool stuff with it. They also added focus spells.
God, that is so clean.
There are a lot of focus spells that go along with this. I'm expecting them to be enhancing the actual casting of spells, but also giving you cool elemental focused abilities.
They're going to release spell cards for this book, aren't they?
I'm sure.
I'm super stoked about that.
You and your freaking spell cards.
Well, I need them as a player. Otherwise, every one of my turns is going to eat up like 5 minutes when I'm a caster.
Okay.
And I hate those tables.
So that's all of the player options as far as building a character goes. However, they introduce items.
Magic items. Always magic items. Yep.
A couple spells and rituals in each of the elemental sections. Now, I spent most of my time reading and rereading the first 60 pages of this book. I have a feeling Erik has spent a significant amount of time reading all of the rest.
Almost
of
all
book.
of my time looking at pretty pictures.
That's fair.
The magic item sections for each of these elemental chapters
so cool.
Has a full page spread of just art. A fossil fragment, a limestone shield, Jabali's dice. I don't even know what that word is, but it's got powder next to it. The robe of stone. You know, there's cool visuals because, come on, guys, this is a hugely visual medium here we're looking at. So, so magic items with some cool artwork to go with it for look and feel kind of stuff.
Yeah, every page has a piece of art on it. Every elemental section has the 2 new gods that are part of that element.
Not new gods, but they did pre-exist, but there's a new situation involving the deities.
Sure, yeah. And they have like actual spreads now. I don't think we've ever had like religious symbols for these gods before. I don't
Not
think
for these ones that I'm aware of. I don't think Gods and Magic really went into the elemental gods, except maybe in like a sidebar or something.
And even in previous books, I don't think we've ever
probably
had.
Waiting.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever really had this kind of detail. Each one of those gods gets like 1 page. Yeah. And then we have a bunch of spells related to that element.
Phenomenal artwork for each of these deities. And there's like 2 per element. Air, earth, fire, water, wood.
There's 10.
Metal, there's 6.
5.
There's 5. Air, earth, fire, water, metal, wood.
It's a pentagram.
Oh?
The pentagram, right? Penta means 5. Pentagram.
Right, but there's 6. Air, earth, fire, water.
Air,
and then there's
earth,
wood,
fire,
metal.
water.
There's 6.
Oh, fuck.
So there's like 12 deities that are in here.
It's a hexagon. Okay.
I failed high school geometry.
Oh, man. Math is hard.
That's not entirely true. It's only partially true.
So anyway, getting back to the air elemental stuff, I thought it was pretty neat. The art is definitely pretty. We've got some really, really cool air spells. Yep. Air spells have always kind of been hit or miss. They've either been like way too broken.
Yeah.
Or hella mid.
I also noticed just from my, again, this isn't a deep dive, just my knee jerk. I went through and I just kind of like glided over a lot of this. I fully expected these to be blaster caster spells, but with the elemental, everything they put into this, there are blasty spells, there's utility spells. They're, using fire is a means of creating armor. It is not something we're used to historically in D&D. So it was really cool to see this sort of like, the plumber of the plains, what kind of spells they might use,
yeah, exactly.
as opposed to the frontline blaster caster. I super appreciate that.
They also include a ritual at the end, I think, of each one of these. There's a ritual spell, which I think.
And there's a lot of spells out there that used to be spells and now they're rituals. And we're going to see a lot more of that when the remastered comes up at the
which is a really cool balancing piece.
Wish is one of them too.
Yeah.
Didn't Wish used to be like a 10th level spell? And now it's a ritual?
It used to be a 9th level spell in first edition, and now it's a 10th level spell, and now it's a ritual. 10th level ritual.
Yeah, it's hopped around a little bit, as wishes are wont to do.
I mean, it's the most powerful spell in the game, you know what I mean? It has to be locked behind gates.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got anything to say about the air items?
No, but I did want to point out that because we're in a...
I'm talking about the floating tent. Come on.
The floating tent. That's going to get a little play.
Badass,
what am I trying to say here? The orc license. A lot of the terminology in here, like we've said multiple times, has been changing to reflect that. And some of the new rules and the new paradigm is coming in. For instance, we know alignment's going away. Good and evil isn't really going to be a thing going forward. What that means, according to the deities, is you have these edicts and anathemas and areas of concern. These are the things that define what they give a shit about as deities, not good and evil. Holy and unholy is going to be a different conversation. So as we're looking at Hashura and Ranganori, and no, I didn't get either of those names right, I don't know if these are good or evil deities, quote unquote, good or evil, but I do see that the divine sanctification, for one, says you can choose holy. It doesn't say unholy, it says holy. So he's probably something good-ish. I have some guidelines to go by.
Yeah.
The other one over here can choose unholy. Oh, yeah. I know who this is. She's responsible for a lot of bad stuff in the elemental lore in Pathfinder.
That's true.
Like all the good elemental princes and lords, they got imprisoned for millennia.
Yeah.
And the bad guys were all in on it.
Yeah.
And Pathfinder Society had a really cool year-long story about freeing the good guys.
Mm-hmm.
But again, good and evil alignment, not so much a thing anymore, but we still have the edicts and anathemas. And for my money, I vastly prefer edicts and anathemas to alignment.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to get into this when we do a huge deep dive on the whole remastered subject and when the books come out, especially.
November is going to be a huge month for us.
Yeah, Eric and I definitely not fans of the alignment system.
Yeah.
Surprise.
For a lot of subjective reasons, but I think some objective reasons as well.
So anything special you want to talk about in the air before we move on?
Not air specifically.
Cool.
So there's the GM portion of this book, and then there's the player portion of this book. I think the big takeaway for people is players can pick a new class. There's new elemental focus backgrounds, spells, magic items.
Mm-hmm.
I'm missing something.
Okay.
The things you expect to see for players in all the books.
Absolutely.
But they're elemental focused, and it's not limited just to the Kineticist. That's my big thing I want to get through.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time thinking, why do I even care about Rage of Elements? I'm not going to play a bender of any kind.
Yeah.
Well, no, my fighter can use all this stuff. My thaumaturge can use all this stuff. And that makes this infinitely more valuable to me.
That and there's monsters for DMs and there's lore for DMs.
There's a lot of monsters.
There's a lot.
I don't know how many, but there's a lot of monsters.
I mean, I think each one gets like
just the fire
3
section.
or 4.
All of my notes here are specifically on the fire section, so I'm just extrapolating from there.
Gotcha.
There's like 10 different fire monsters, and they range from 1st to 14th level. I didn't see a lot of like super high level stuff in here, whether it was the items or the spells or anything like that. It tend to stick between like 3 and 14 for the majority of it, which makes sense because mid-level games are kind of where we live as a population.
Absolutely.
But I was kind of curious why they didn't have like the uber high level stuff in such a focused book as this one. I don't know. Maybe they're saving those for the AP volume.
Maybe they ran out of pages. I mean, this book is like 230 pages.
Yeah,
it's kind of crazy.
Looks like it keeps up with Secrets of Magic and Guns and Gears and Dark Archives.
It's a thick boy. So I imagine they were probably trying to like save space. And I mean, there are some pretty high level creatures in here. 14. I just saw 5 and 4. Another 14, a genie.
Yeah, 14 seems to be not the cap, but that's where
the soft cap. Yeah,
a soft cap. There you go.
Greatness and decline. So do you just want to like talk about your highlights from these sections together? Then
I'm a big guy about NPCs. I love my non-player characters. I love making them. But I also don't want to invent every single solitary voice in my entire world. Yeah. Why did I just say that? Because at the beginning of each of these elemental sections, air, earth, fire, water, wood, metal. Did I do it right finally? Heart. You forgot heart. I forgot heart. Oh, yeah. I always forget heart. At the beginning of all these sections, they introduce an NPC that is a representative of that section. So if you're looking at the elemental plane of Earth, which I think Robert just opened to.
Yeah.
Is that Earth or metal?
This is metal.
That's metal.
Mm-hmm.
The third page in, big splash art, little bit of fun in-world text. And then there's a picture of the narrator of that entire chapter. And that narrator, you want to go ahead and read that bit?
The Elementalist Talmadair.
The names are all wonky. I will never get them.
Master of the Conduit, formerly known as Noctino, Slayer of Mountains, and formerly Servithius, the Cube Carver, has been a historian in the service of the Eupheus Coalition, an advisor to generals, and trapped beneath a mountain of slag for about 3,000 years. She now serves as an adjunct professor at the Elementarium Conservatory of Argyris. He asked the dyslexic...
Let's put these fucking names.
He asked the dyslexic kid to read the paragraph with words that don't exist.
Well done.
Thank you. I
appreciate that. So yeah, if there's 6 different elements, there are 6 different narrators, which means there's 6 different NPCs.
Yeah.
And if you want to bring anything involving the inner planes, if they're even still calling that, you've got them here. You don't have to invent those characters.
Mm-hmm.
They're right here for you, and they're all different. Just slap Joe Pesci's voice on one of them and maybe Pee Wee Herman's on another one. Whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
the guy who plays the main character from Howl's Moving Castle, because I know things.
Howl? No, that's not the main character. That's not. She's I can't remember her name.
Okay,
either.
I don't know things, but
I'm not good at names.
that joke fell flat.
All right.
So yeah, you asked what I wanted to say about more things I like about it. Yeah, the lore is second to none in here because it's general, while at the same time being specific.
Right.
So you have there's only so many pages, like you said, that you can spend on the elemental plane of metal. And we need an NPC, we need items, we need magic spells, we need monsters. There's a lot of stuff that has to be in a chapter like that. So to put an NPC with a little bit of block of text and a bunch of made up words that actually mean something in Galarian, if you're using this setting, that was just really nicely done. It felt like they slipped it in and just barely managed to get it in there.
It's very reminiscent of the Book of the Dead, except it's not just one author; it's multiple authors all the time, which I really enjoy.
Yeah, talk about herding cats. That I don't know how the project manager for this managed to get all this done, but kudos to that person.
It sounds like they've been working on it for a long time.
Yeah,
too. Yeah. I really love the two sections on the the metal
guitar.
It's a guitar. It's a resonant guitar. I read the metal and wood sections the most out of all of these, just because they're the new ones, and I wanted to kind of get a vibe for what the metal element was, because that's the one that intrigued me the most. I feel like when we all say what the wood element is, it's like kind of obvious to a lot of people where it's going to go. You know, I think everyone can just assume wood is about vitality and growth. Vitality and growth and green
and how do you
stuff.
do that in a way where it's not stepping on the first world's toes, lore wise? That was a big challenge for this one.
Yeah, you're right. That's a good point. I didn't ever even thought about that. But when it came to explaining like the lore and feel of the plane of elemental metal, to me that was the biggest home run, because just this first 4 opening paragraphs made it sound so like sophisticated and erudite, I guess is the word, but at the same time, like failing from their own hubris in a lot of ways.
Okay.
That I picked up, you know what I mean? And I don't know, they gave it so much character from all of the other planes that I'd read up to or know about thus far. So I was just really impressed with what they did with the elemental plane of metal. And I really want to play a character now that's closely tied to this.
Oh, hell yeah. Do you remember a video game called Brutal Legend? It was Jack Black's love letter to video games and heavy metal.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm going to be playing a metal druid.
Oh my God.
It's that. So yeah.
I mean, what's weird about that though is like it was.
Might talk like Ozzy Osbourne. We don't know yet.
Sick.
That game was rad.
Yeah. I remember that game was being very big and boisterous. Like the whole game was like big, boisterous, in your face, loud. And what I love about the metal is it's not that. It's not, when people say metal, they immediately, I think in my mind, go to metal heads and stuff like that.
Sure.
But they really hype the metal plane up.
Aggressive, razor wire, extreme aggressive.
Razor wire, that's a great word for it. But instead it's sophisticated and kind of somber and collected and very
melancholy, I think was one of the words they were using for it.
Very cold, which is a good way to kind of, when you touch metal, it feels cold.
Yeah.
I really, really like that. Some of the metal spells are like fucking crazy. Like you never expect metal to do some of this stuff. And of course they had to introduce the metal domain, for clerics.
I didn't even think of that. They had to come up with a whole new domain. And when you do that, you're talking monsters, items, spells, deities.
I believe they also came up with, if I'm not wrong, they came up with a metal druid order as well.
I did not see that.
I didn't either, but I don't remember seeing it specifically, but I'm pretty sure they made something for it. I could be wrong again. Don't quote me. I've read I've had less than 48 hours to read this book. So that was pretty cool. And then the metal monsters, like Asp of Grief. Like what? It's a small
Asp of Grief.
Okay. 10th level creature. All right. Creature 10. It's a small sized snake with a beard made of little bells. Okay.
Okay. That's just weird. But I mean, I'm here for it, but that's just weird.
Feeds on people's emotions. And it's from the plane of elemental metal. Do you see this kind of like connections that they're making with this?
That's total Dementor territory.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the flavor of the
Greatness
plane.
in Decline is the name of the chapter for metal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the mood and the vibe they're setting up.
Emo.
With
elemental plane of emo.
I love it. I love it so much. This other thing, the Carptilex, 17th level creature, pretty fucking high up there.
Capritelix.
And
that's like, the three-eyed thing with the
moving
the
faces.
triune face.
So it reminds me of a classic boss from one of the Link. I remember there's like one of the early.
It's an old video game trope.
Game Boy
sure.
Advance Link monsters is something just like this.
I think there's also a He-Man character that does that too, where he has three faces.
Gotcha.
And like each of the faces share an eye or something like that.
Yeah. So then the wisp, the elemental wisp, is literally a metal skull with rust clouds coming off of its back end.
So metal.
Which is like emo as fuck, right? Like it's emo as fuck, and I love it. The rust scarab art is just so badass. I want to have this as like a tattoo. Like it's just.
That thing just creeps me out.
I love it.
Yeah, I feel like I need a shower just looking at that thing.
Exactly. But then you have like the Sky Metal Striker, which is this like beautiful two-headed serpentine dragon thing. So there's this big duality between this like the elegance of creation and transmutation and like liquid metal. I mean, you can actually see this duality in the gods. If we go to the gods, it's this
for metal.
Yeah, for metal. It's this beautiful
elemental lords.
It's this beautiful transmuter against this giant rust monster.
That's a tick.
Yeah, I mean, it's a rust monster, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? It looks like
which
is the tick. It looks like a giant rust monster. It has the rust monster antenna and everything.
Barum Nestra, the Lady of Rust. Areas of concern: metal, decline, inevitability, mourning. MOUR. Yeah. So emo.
And then juxtaposed against it is Laudin.
It's Creepy McCreeperson.
I don't know. I don't think she looks creepy. They look creepy at all. They look
Laudon Mio.
They look
these names
elegant and intellectual.
I don't know, man. That is a melted face.
Oh, sure.
That looks creepy to me.
But like when you read the domains, you know, change, creation, metal, sorrow. Alternate domains are wealth. Favored weapon is the alchemical bomb. A cleric of Laudimino doesn't automatically gain any access to uncommon bombs. Okay. So it's like
areas of concern for this lady, the sovereign of alchemy, alchemy and regret. That's a character concept waiting to happen.
Alchemy and regret.
Sorry, guys, mistakes were made. Yeah. Won't happen again.
Their edicts are discovered new alloys and concoctions, have multiple concurrent plans, innovate use of metals.
Anathema being allow your creation to fall into malicious hands, destroy an alchemical formula.
So they're all about like
a super direct.
Yeah, they're all I mean they're all kind of direct, right? And I like the directness, frankly. Some of them are not as direct as they could have been, I think. Right. You know, like
room for interpretation.
Yeah, but I like the directness because it really gives you as a player something to run off of. You know what I mean? Something to really pick up and make a part of your personality, especially if you're like a cleric or your personality and your character is of a devotee. Yeah. Like if they're a devotee of that god, it gives you a really thick piece of steak to chew on.
I like that better than alignment because people are always going to try. Here I am speaking in generalities. I have seen it time and time again. People justify an action and claiming it's a good action when people around the table are like, all right, I'm not voting for you next election cycle if you think that's a good action. So having edicts and anathemas are really good ways to get away from that ridiculous alignment conversation about what qualifies as good, neutral, evil, law, and chaos. And, you know, when we say lawful good, are we talking about people who always cross the street at the intersection? Or are we talking about something else when we say that?
Exactly.
I want to jettison all that crap and get into edicts and anathemas because you're right. This is thick, juicy steak. This isn't speaking in generalities. This is speaking in specificities. Yeah. And once you start specific, you can kind of get general from there. And it's really hard to get players to start general and get specific in a way that makes me happy with the pacing of a game.
Absolutely.
My 2 cents.
The new genie that's added for the metal element is both beautiful and creepy.
Yeah. What page are you on there? 160?
Yeah, 160, 161. On the left, we have like this female figure that is a combination of liquid metal combined with.
This is T-1000 from Terminator 2. 100%.
Sure. Yeah, totally. Yep. And then on the right, we have like a large masculine figure. Like
it's very Buddha-like.
Okay.
I mean, if Buddha had taken a role in Hellraiser.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, there we go. There we go. There we go. All the Buddhists out there are like,
it's the stance.
Sir. Yeah. It's sitting wide and
chonky boy sitting large. Indian style.
Yeah. And that's its own like. Yeah. Anyway, I won't get into Buddhism right now, but the nails are super long, which is just really throwing me.
It's evocative.
And they're like smile. I don't know. Something about it reminds me of the antagonist from Final Fantasy 14. The one where you go to the plane of elemental light.
I never played 14.
Yeah. I can't remember the name of it right now for whatever reason, but the main antagonist was like this glutton, basically this glutton king who protected his own country and kept it from getting overrun by the powers of that's destroying the whole world. But it was because he was working in cahoots with them the whole time. Gotcha. Very corrupt, very gluttonous, very indulgent. And I get that vibe like immediately from this character. Sure. These like chains with the spikes at the end, the spike chains. Mm-hmm. You know, I got a weakness for spike chains when it comes to weapons as a player. So this is very, very informative as far as
I wish I had more to say about this next piece here, but Genie's got a they got a makeover for remastered, and it's starting with this book. And I wish I knew more about that. So that's the next thing I'm going to look at as I go through this book for the deep dive. Is I want to know why these aren't our daddy's genies. Mm. How are they new? You know,
our daddy's genies.
Yeah, you know what's that expression? This ain't your daddy's game.
Okay,
you know, this is a new game for a new generation.
Oh man.
But
daddy means something very different to the younger generation.
So do spike chains as a preference.
That's fair.
But I with the new focus on elemental critters and genies being one of them, I'm curious to see how genies are different. I mean, this isn't Robin Williams giving you 3 wishes. You can't make anyone fall in love. You can't bring anybody back from the dead. I don't like doing it. That's not what genies are anymore. So what are they? Are they just elementals? Mm-hmm. I mean, what makes a genie and not a tick elemental like that image we saw earlier?
Yeah, the god of.
So I'm curious to learn more about that, especially as I turn back to the Legacy of Fire adventure path from Once Upon a Time and see if any of this can make that AP sexy again.
Mm-hmm. Jumping to the elemental plane of wood.
Wood.
I was, I didn't read this as extensively as metal because metal really caught my eye, but the 2 gods in it are
the elemental
things
lords
made out of wood and grass. There's a wood snake with the grass mane. That's like and it's more like an Eastern dragon, really, like a snake, like a dragon. And then we have like this old man.
He's great.
4
I love him.
Arms, and he's a farmer.
He looks like a red cap dryad. Look at that hat. Look at that sickle.
Right. Yeah.
And look at the hunched over.
Yeah.
He even has like literal red caps growing on his back.
His name is Verilorn,
the custodian of oak and ash.
And then the other one is named Shumanu.
Shumunwe?
Shumunwe.
I have no idea.
Yeah, no.
You guys at Paizo in your love affair with vowels and extra consonants.
Yeah, this is driving my dyslexia crazy. My mind, like I'm literally looking at it right now and I can't discern where the U's are. That's crazy. Okay, anyway.
And I like how, as we get into these elemental lords for all the various elements, it talks about those who were imprisoned and what they're doing now. What's the state of things right now in the elemental planes? Who's talking to who? Who's shoring up their power base to be alongside another? In one of these, it even literally said, when this person got out, they built their fortress on the border of their own element and the adjacent element. And as you were saying earlier, there's a section of the back for what do you call it? Composite elements, combination elements.
That's the last thing I want to get to.
That's lore as well. What happens when you are, like the elemental lord of fire and you build your summer home next to the elemental plane of water, and you get this steam thing going on, and there's critters that are specific to that. So having all of that text in these elemental lore passages, it really made this setting come alive for me. Like, I could easily take all this and play it in Greyhawk. I could play it in Ravenloft. I could play it in whatever setting I wanted to. But the fact that they took the time to say, yeah, when this person came out of that magic gem after, 3 millennia of being trapped in there, and now their elemental plane is not what it looked like when they left.
Yeah.
And now they're trying to shore up their defenses and, trying to just stage themselves and get ready. And these are the people they're talking to. So like relationship maps are sort of intuited in this book.
Absolutely.
And I dig that.
Yeah, they're kind of hard coded in a lot of ways in some of the descriptions.
Yeah.
So let's jump to the back end of the book called The Churn of Elements.
Oh, this is my favorite part.
Okay, cool. This reminds me a lot of Ravenloft. Not Ravenloft. I know, I just got you excited.
How could you?
No, it's in Magic the Gathering. There is a setting. It's a city. That's
Ravnica.
Ravnica. Thank you.
That's the one Magic that I played since 1995, I think.
So in Ravnica, each guild is a combination of one of the two colors. In Magic, the 5 colors are white, black, red, blue, and green. And there's, of course, like what? That would make 10 guild combinations, I guess.
Sure, whatever the combos are. There's a lot of
math. This kind of reminds me of that in a lot of ways. Like, what are these combinations? What's the feel of these combinations?
Sure. And where do they pop up in Galarian? Notable churn regions.
Yeah, so we've got some really cool genies that are combinations of different elements in the monster section.
Yeah, is that the Johnny? Is that what you're looking at?
These are the Gen.
Yeah,
Jan.
John.
Yeah, John. Yeah,
that's what I was trying to do with my monk that I made a while ago that I'm redoing for Kineticist. It was basically all 4 elements present within a single genie individual. And that leads to the next section after that, which is the hybrid element spells. So, there's counters, there's 3 action elemental spells, there's hybrid element rituals, elemental servitor. I almost wish that this section was longer, actually. Yeah. There's only about 5 or 6 pages. It's kind of a footnote. It said, here's the design space. Go have at it.
Yeah.
That's the impression I got.
Yeah. And I was really hoping for more of that Ravnica vibe. Maybe they're kind of alluding to it. We might get something in the future. But
I wish, but I totally doubt it, given how we're trying to divorce ourselves from other WotC.
From other IPs, yeah. Oh, you're right. It is another. Oh, God.
Yeah,
it is another
it's just yet another stumbling block.
Oh, geez.
Hybrid element items, like tchotchkes you carry on your person as a bard.
Yeah.
The cipher of the elemental planes, elemental fragments. I've always loved like the para-elemental planes in D&D of like smoke, ash, magma, the places where the core elemental planes come together to create these composites is what we're calling them here apparently. I like those interstices in between major concepts because that's where the interesting stories take place. I don't care about the city of brass and the elemental plane of fire because we've already done that for the past 40 years and more, going back to Scheherazade. What is the I don't know, the dugout on the elemental plane of static electricity? What would that be? Like air and something else? It would be different.
Air and fire?
Sure. Let's call it air and fire just because I don't have a better combination example.
Air and metal?
So like what kind of monsters would be there? What sort of edify would be there? What sort of, what can you make? What kind of swords can you make using the materials within that native to that plane?
Absolutely.
And what kind of jails can you make? What kind of new gods can be born out of a place like that? Those para-elemental planes or the hybrids they're calling here, I wish they would have done more, like you said, but I can totally see why they didn't.
They probably ran out of space and time.
Yeah.
Is what I'm getting
at. And the individual ones, including the 2 new ones, deserve to have their day in the sun first.
They took so much time to design, I'm sure, that by the time they were done with all 6, they were like, all right, ship it, please. We're done. We want to get this out before 2027.
And for the love of God, please keep these spell lists as clean as you guys at Paizo are doing. Page 228, the spell list, arcane first rank spells. They're not level spells anymore. They're called ranks now.
Yeah, which makes perfect sense.
Easy to remember.
Yeah,
Arcane
and different
spells,
from
divine
level.
spell list. your occult spell list, your primal spell list. Everything is so easy to read and track and follow.
Yeah. So if you want to go book only, you can, of course, like, you know, Archives of Nethys and Path Builder already have this baked in day one.
100%, yeah.
Which is
and there's a
dope.
super sexy ability glossary because, like we said, some of the nomenclature has been changing. Attack of Opportunities is no longer that.
Yeah.
So if you're like, what is this word? Just go to the glossary. It's in here.
Yeah, it's a decent glossary too. It's not actually just like a.
And I love what they choose to bold, what they don't bold. So it's, I never feel like I'm just slammed with a wall of text anymore. What it used to be back in the.
All right, Eric. I think we've gone over the entire book. Do you have any final thoughts?
I do. I want to ask you, do you have a singular favorite thing about this book? One particular detail that just made you like giddy inside for a moment? Because I do.
Why don't you say yours first?
All right. I would like to introduce everybody to my new best friend.
The fire otter,
the lava otter. In the elemental plane of fire, the Ifrits of the Dominion of Flame conscript even more of the plane's fire elementals in preparation for new wars in the returned planes. That's wood and metal. Even mobilizing ones that rarely travel near settlements. There are critters out there called lava otters. These fiery otters frolic and hunt in the lava streams of the plane of fire. They're known to be highly territorial, instigating fights with rival otter families to compete for territory. Cautiously curious of strangers, entire packs have been known to descend upon anyone who attacks or even accidentally threatens a family member, like, oh, I don't know, a party of individuals who just kill things. So, yeah, the lava otter has really cute little art here, and this is my favorite thing about this book.
I have to say, I think that the elemental scamp is probably mine.
The scamp, yeah.
The scamp,
just in general.
Just in general, the reflavor of the Mephit into the scamp.
It was such a small, delightful change too.
It really was. It really was. You know, otters are apparently assholes too, which is so perfect.
I didn't know that.
Made out of fire. Oh yeah, they will terrorize you.
The flaming assholes, really.
Exactly. They are otters are real jerks sometimes.
I'm keeping that joke.
So yeah, all in all, I definitely recommend people pick this book up, especially if you have any kind of elemental theme going on in your game, of course. But
and if you want a planar vibe, which we don't really have in second edition up till now.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You know, right now the planes have kind of been relegated to like the heaven and hell.
Yeah, it's whatever's in the core book.
The alignment ones, basically. This gives you a whole new axis, if you want to think about it, of...
Okay. I know they redid all that in the cosmology.
Oh, I'm sure they will. Yeah, whatever. But like, you know, like from our mindset of how the game works right now, and I think a lot of players understand the game as kind of the cosmology outside of the material plane is a disk, and that disk exists on an alignment chart, right? This kind of gives
the great wheel theory of alignment.
Sure, yeah. So this kind of gives you another disk in a different axis that you can kind of access. And what's neat about that is you can drop your players into lore that's already pre-written for the most part. So the DM kind of knows what's going on. They have a good inkling of where things exist, and especially if they want to make it as canonical as they can, while also throwing their players into a whole new world that they don't know the ins and outs of. They're not comfortable with. They don't have pre-existing knowledge or pre-existing meta knowledge to rely on. Pre-existing notions of how things are done or not done.
Yeah.
And I think that is probably the most powerful tool. Out of all of these things in this book, the monsters, for a DM especially, the monsters and the lore for how these planes of existence work really give DMs a lot to chew on that they haven't had before, especially in second edition.
Yeah.
Also, the Kineticist looks very spicy.
Yeah, and if you're looking for like, if you're just trying to find a really quick and dirty way to figure out what's the difference between the elemental plane of wood and earth, and how do I do that in a nutshell, the opening page in each of these chapters has a narrator, and that narrator says, just extrapolate from what I'm about to tell you. You know, listen to the way I talk, listen to the words I throw down, and here's sort of like the state of affairs in the elemental plane of, you know, chutzpah. So yeah, this book really, it's not like bumper bowling, but it's a safe entry, and you can get what you need quickly, without fumbling around from page to page going, what is this? I don't understand. I had trouble navigating the Dark Archives book in a way that I didn't with this book. In this book, I know exactly where to go for everything, because not only is it color coded, not only can you find where you need to be if you have the book closed, which I can't say enough about that. It's super intuitive. And I think that's just a result of going from book to book to book. And they're just getting better at it.
They absolutely are getting better at it. But also you have to admit that the subject matter allowed them to organize the book in a very direct way too, which
Right.
is, pretty beneficial, especially for something so deep.
Yep.
Yeah. So all in all, great introduction. We're going to spend a lot more time with this and let you all know what we think in a couple months' time. We may do another top 5, top 10 video of what our favorite actual parts of the book were.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this was just scratching the surface, and I think we hit like an hour and a half. So
the lava otter will come back.
Oh yeah, lava otter time. My scamp is going to be scamping pretty hard in the near future.
Always be scamping.
Always be scamping. And with that, goblins, we leave you. Have a wonderful time, and as always, keep it weird.
Keep it weird.